Hi, my name's Yaeli Ohana. I'm a professional artist. I've been working for over 20 years and I'm here to talk to you about Hydrocryl and their amazing range of paints. More than anything, it's important for me to work with materials that are non-toxic, and the great thing about this paint is it's not only non-toxic, which means your kids can play around with it as well, but at the same time it's artist quality, so you're getting the best results possible in terms of the intensity of the colour. It's pure pigmented, which means it means it's just made with, each colour is made with one pigment only, and that's why you get this amazing intensity. So for example, this red is so intense because it's not having to be mixed, you don't have to have a few different pigments to make the red colour. So it means that you end up with this beautiful luminosity to the paint. And it means then when you mix colours, you're keeping the purity of the paint, of the colour itself. You're not losing colours and getting sort of a more muddy, murky kind of look that you get with lesser quality paints. Start with the colour, for example. So I might start with this as my base colour. I might mix up a really huge amount of this base colour, for example. And then I can take from that, move to a new spot, add in just a small amount of an accent colour, another colour into that, and you end up with a nice variation on that original colour. Then you might shift that to a new spot on the palette, add in another colour, in this case a beautiful, really vibrant red. Okay, so once we've got sort of a palette and we're building a palette from these colours by just simply each time taking from the last blob of paint, moving into a new spot, and then just grabbing a little tiny bit of another paint, mixing it in, just shifting that colour just slightly, so you get a whole lot of variations. You can just do this to your heart's content. I mean, you can do it as many times as you like to build up your palette, and it can be as subtle or as adventurous as you like, but basically you just end up with a whole lot of sort of more natural colours that you'd see in nature. In terms of corrupting a canvas, what I'll tell students to do often is just, start sort of making some marks, and it doesn't even matter what that is, but it's just to get rid of this totally blank, scary canvas in front of you. So there are different techniques, obviously dry brush, where you're just kind of hovering the brush over the surface and you allow for whatever colour's behind that to shine through, and I'll do a wash over the top of that. And so you can usually wait till it dries, of course, and look at that. What I use a lot in my own painting is using a rag, and so equally important, putting down the paint is to also be prepared to rub back and rub off and get some really amazing hazy kind of atmospheric effects and textures by rubbing back as well. Start kind of making marks by using flowers are a great source of alternative marks. You can see you can actually swirl things around, scrunching things up, and just get really loose and free with it. So you can play, just treat it as something that's fun and like a child would play. And I can drip bits of water on that and smudge it around, wipe bits off, again just smudge that all back. But you're basically creating a surface, a background to then add many layers onto. And again, the great thing about these paints is that because they are nice and thick, you've got the option to use impasto, so you've got that sort of chunky textured kind of look as well if you want to use that. There's so much potential for using your imagination and being really quite experimental and just seeing what certain things are going to do. Amount of paint on there, I can really sort of get some interesting marks. That looks like love hearts. My 4-year-old would probably say immediately, "Mummy, you've done some love hearts there." So again, just allowing chance things to happen again. Like maybe what I'll do is drip some water on there. You could even run it under a bath at some point to just get rid of some of the marks. But the great thing is, because they're such good quality and they're pure pigmented, it means that you're not going to lose the brightness and intensity of the colour. And that's actually really important, because you want your colours to be as intense as they possibly can be, and you also want them to last for a long time. And again, the fact that they're really archival quality means that when it dries, it's going to look like this. So this is Prussian blue. What's beautiful about this colour is it's so rich and intense. It goes a long way. You don't actually have to put much of this paint out, and it will go a very long way. If you actually sort of add water, you can see how intense it is. It's this incredibly intense colour. It's beautiful. But it's also a bit insidious, so it can get into other colours as well, and but it can give this really beautiful, intense sort of it's very good for washes and things like that. And if you obviously do a wash of that over yellow, you get this beautiful green, you know, sort of ocean green type colour. And for me, painting's about building up layers. It's about sort of revealing and concealing things. So you can have, you know, 20 layers in the one painting. And in that work, you're sort of hiding things that are underneath the surface. So that's kind of an exciting concept. This is ultramarine blue. This is actually a warm blue. And again, it's such a beautiful colour because it's, again, because it's single pigmented. So it's the pure colour. It's not mixed. It's not a few different pigments mixed to make that colour. If you want a really intense, pure green as a starting point and you're mixing your palette, one way to do that, for example, would be to start with a classic cool yellow, like lemon yellow. So I'm going to just take a scoop of that, put that there, and then Prussian blue. And then basically what you need to do is you always add the darker colour into the lighter colour, and that way you're actually not going to waste a whole lot of unnecessary paint. And you can just gradually add the darker of the two into the lighter, and you'll see very quickly it darkens up. So it's very important to be subtle about how much paint you mix, and that's a really gorgeous green. It's a lovely starting point because it's really beautiful and vibrant. But then what I can do is again mix an interesting palette by taking from that initial colour, your base colour, and then adding tiny little tint or tinge. Look how much, only a tiny bit of another colour into that. In this case I'm adding crimson red. Just shifts it slightly, very subtly. It's like, that's more like a gum leaf kind of green. And again, if I added more of that same red, it would go to this kind of colour. And then all these colours are going to sort of somehow relate. And let's see, we can just add a bit of white in there to change the tone of it. Just lighten it a bit there, move it over to a new spot. Once you've done that, you've basically got a recipe for hopefully a really nice painting. And it's just one technique of hundreds of possible techniques, but it's a good starting point. And yeah, it's basically about having the confidence to just trust yourself, have a play around, enjoy it, and just see what comes in the process.